Welcome to 24/7 World Radio Podcast with Brother Eric John Phelps on this Friday, August the 15th, 2025. Coming to you live and direct from the bustling metropolis of Newmanstown, Pennsylvania, with our one stoplight. So welcome, and this evening we have our most erudite researcher, Brother George Widger, to give us some more information on the Jesuit coadjutors in power that permeate this Holy Roman 14th Amendment, socialist, communist, corporate, fascist American empire. So, Brother George, welcome to the broadcast.
Well, thank you. As always, Brother Eric, it's a pleasure to be on with you.
Pleasure to have you. So, what do you have for us today?
Well, before I get into that, when you said you were going to have your most erudite researcher on, I thought you were interviewing Stephen Drake, but I guess you'll just have to settle for me.
Yeah, well, he's very good, and between you and him, I got the best here. So,
Oh,
mhm.
okay. Well, I agree with at least 50% of that. But
Oh,
so anyhow, so my scripture verse for this afternoon slash evening ish is Psalms 37, verse 4. Psalms 37, verse 4, what says, delight thyself also in the Lord, and he shall give the desires of thine heart.
yeah,
Okay, so this is a fairly straightforward passage. And however, it's easy to take it out of context. What's the cliche? Any verse taken out of context can be used as a pretext. Well, this is one of the favorite passages for your so-called health and wealth and name it and claim it ministers,
heresy,
such as,
heresy, yeah.
well, yeah, such as Joel Osteen or Joyce Meyer, Ken Copeland, fill in the blank. And they
Mhm.
said, so basically, God is this genie in the sky. He's like a celestial Pez machine that dispenses favor. So if you just rub his belly, he'll give you whatever uh, you want.
Yeah.
Or if you rub the lantern. Well, not exactly. You basically had to be in God's will. You had to be yielded to Him. Also, you cannot have sin in your life,
That's
and you
right.
definitely cannot have habitual sin in your life.
That's right.
And
If I regard iniquity in my heart, the Lord will not hear me. So that's
yes,
very simple and to the point.
okay. So, however, but regarding these people like Joel Osteen and Joyce Meyer, is God wants them to be rich. And if you sow enough seed money, and you've had others like Robert Tilton and Oral Roberts and his son, and a whole bunch of cast of characters, Jim Baker, who said basically, if you send them money, God will make you rich. So if you send $1, he'll turn that into $10. If you send $10, he'll turn that into $100. I'm not sure where that's written in the Bible. Maybe it's the parts in invisible ink.
It's terrible. I've seen this for years. It's just awful, and it's the way down. It's the way down the drain. If you make money that important and tell lies like that, then you're going to get it.
Ah,
Yep.
well, so today, at least here in North America, is still August the 15th, as you said in your intro. And so, do you know what historical significance or what the historical significance of this date is?
I think this is the day when the Jesuits were restored by the Pope.
Well, close. That was August the 7th, 1814. This was the day in 1534, so 191 years ago. Not quite half a century ago, where they were organized. They were not officially recognized as an order until September the 27th, 1540. Also, more recently,
So they were
perhaps
so they were organized August 15th, 1534. Right?
correct.
Okay.
So it was also on this date, 1950, 75 years ago, Pope Pius XII declared that Mary was bodily assumed into heaven.
Great.
Therefore, she did
Kind of
not
like
die.
Muhammad. kind of like Muhammad when he ascended into heaven on his horse.
Ah,
Same fairy tales. Go ahead.
okay. So as I said, that was in 1950, and so they all throughout the 19th and 20th century, the Jesuits have been launching all these balloons because for hundreds of years they had these unofficial traditions. They said she was immaculately conceived, meaning that she was not conceived in sin, she being Mary. And I believe, I want to say that it was 1846. No, I'm sorry, 1854.
Oh yeah, that's the syllabus of errors.
Yes.
In other words, it's a list of errors of modern civilization, and one of them is freedom of conscience, speech, and press. That's an error. Yeah. Mhm.
Uh, yes. And so, okay, question for you. This is just your opinion, and so I'll just note that. So, why do you think the Jesuits waited until 1950 to declare their mother goddess, I mean Mary, to have been assumed into heaven?
Well, the world was still bleeding from World War II. The manhood, much of the manhood had been killed off that would have resisted that. And so they waited, 5 years after World War II when Europe's in ruins and people are distracted with other matters trying to stay alive, that he comes out with this gross heresy that with the Immaculate Conception of Mary, the Virgin Mary. So, it's a military operation, George. So they
Mhm.
militarily decided on when to attack, and the attack was to put out this fabulous doctrine of that she was not conceived in sin.
Well, actually, that's a different. No, actually, this declaration or pronouncement was is that she was assumed to heaven, that
Oh,
she did not die and she
pardon
did
me.
not
Yes,
see corruption.
yeah, pardon me. She ascended into heaven. There you go.
Okay, so she did not decay,
Well,
and there's no biblical support for this whatsoever. Now,
right.
Catholics argue that has always been the unofficial position of the Catholic Church, going back to at least the fourth century or whenever it came to being. But it was Pius X that officially solidified. He articulated that dogma.
Mhm.
And yes, it is a dogma of the Catholic Church.
Yes, it is.
So they were okay. So you're saying people just weren't ready to accept it. So why? Okay, they had killed off the best of the manhood in Europe and in North America as well. So why wait until 1950? Why not do that 10 years earlier or 10 years later or whatever?
Well, that's how I look at it. I look at it as it was right after World War II. Everybody's distracted. And they put that upon the Catholic people.
Mm-hmm.
And many Catholic priests thought that was ridiculous. So it's another Jesuit doctrine fashioning Romanism into ancient Babylonian pagan religion. Yeah.
Okay, so as I said, that was 1950, 75 years ago. So that was just at the beginning of the another Vatican creation, the Cold War. Specifically, the Korean War had just begun.
Right.
I believe that was in June
Yeah,
1950, June the 25th.
I think so, 1950. They
Okay,
also Harry Truman put forth his proclamation 2914 on September 16th, 1950. And see, that would be the basis for being able to go to war in Korea.
okay. So the Jesuits told this apostate Baptist, this Freemasonic apostate Baptist, Harry Truman, said, "Hey, we want you to send troops into North or South Korea initially, and then into North Korea."
Yep. Dirty Harry.
And
Dirty Harry Truman did what he was told.
okay, through Francis Cardinal Spellman and Edmund Walsh.
That's right.
Okay, and
Oh, wow.
then so Douglas MacArthur said, "Hey, let's go into mainland China." but he wasn't authorized to do that.
Yeah, hey, let's go into mainland China because we know we can win the war if we do that. Because he was fully aware of the Chinese in World War II and how they were butchered by the Japanese. Do you realize that when the Chinese soldiers gave succor and comfort to the airmen who bombed Tokyo, when that with the Doolittle raid, did you know? I just found this out that the Japanese killed 250,000 Chinese over the few Chinese soldiers giving aid to American soldiers.
I
Unbelievable
did,
cruelty. Yes,
I didn't know that.
yes, you did know it.
Well, the Doolittle raid lived up to his name. It did virtually nothing. I think they may have killed some cows, some destroyed some barns and things like that, but it did no strategic damage.
That's not what the movie says, George. If you watch that movie, why the Doolittle raid destroyed all these things, and I mean, Hollywood would lie to us, George. Come on now.
Ah, yeah, yes. So, or are you talking about the movie? Was it 30 Seconds Over Tokyo?
No, it's the movie on Pearl Harbor. It's the most recent one on Pearl Harbor.
Oh, the movie Pearl Harbor.
Right. Uh-huh. And so
Oh,
after Pearl Harbor, they then attack Japan, and it's led by some famous actors. One is Alec Baldwin. He plays Doolittle, and the other guy is a famous actor in several movies.
Ben Affleck.
Ben Affleck. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So Alec Baldwin is a Freemason and a devout Roman Catholic. Ben Affleck, I'm not sure what his affiliation is. Almost certainly a Freemason.
Yeah.
And who directed that movie? It wasn't Jerry Bruckheimer, who was a
Could have
Vermont.
been.
Was a
Could have been because he's the one that was the director of Top Gun.
yes.
Top Gun Maverick. Yeah.
Okay, so Jerry Bruckheimer, he did the original Top Gun. So he's a B'nai B'rith.
Masonic Jew.
Yes.
Yeah. Yep.
And of course, you know, yeah, I saw the movie Pearl Harbor, and I can't. It was the only time I ever cried at a film because I was saying to myself, "Boy, I can't believe I wasted so much money." So,
Yeah.
it, anyhow, so it wasn't particularly good. It was just like it, I'm not a big fan of CGI, computer graphic image. I prefer the 1970 film Tor Tor Tor. That's just me. And so, as I said, today's August the 15th. And so the Jesuits were organized a stage, and Pius XII declared Mary was bodily assumed into heaven. Well, I'm looking at my notes. So I just wondering. So I guess Donald Trump had ordered something like 800 members of the National Guard into Washington, D.C., because he says uh, crime is running rampant in that city.
You
And
mean
does that seem to
black savagery? Black
it,
savagery is running rampant in the city because now they think they can beat up and kill any white people that they find. So that's nice. And I'm talking
okay?
about the
So,
majority savage blacks, not the minority civil blacks, that try to get out of the way of these black savages. Go ahead.
okay, so do you think 800 personnel is sufficient to run a city with 700,000 people?
Of course not. Of course not. They're probably going to get beat up pretty bad, and that's going to justify a whole bunch more being sent in there.
Okay, so they tried this about a month or so ago in Los Angeles. Even though the the mayor there, Karen Bass, who is the Eastern Star, the Black Eastern Star mayor of Los Angeles, Karen Bass said, "No, we don't want any sort of federal assistance. We don't want the National Guard, and we especially don't want the Marines coming to our town."
No, because we want to have as much crime as possible. Yep. You got to kill these white people out of LA now. Got to get rid of them.
Mhm. Oh, okay. So then there's the whole question of, did Trump have the authority to federalize the National Guard? Was this a usurpation of the 1878 Posse Comitatus Act? Well, I'm not a legal scholar by any stretch of the imagination. However, according to a number of professional opinions, no, it was not legal.
Well,
But
when you declare a state of national emergency, when you declare an emergency, you can do anything you want to do. And that's why this military government functions. That's how it's functioned for the last 92 years. All they got to do is declare an emergency, and then the chief executive can do what he wants. That's military government. That's not civilian government. See, the problem with the dumbed down American people is they don't know they haven't been under civilian government for 92 years. They think it's a regular civilian government. You go out and you have elections and you vote for people, and the government doesn't have anything to do with it other than counting votes. It's nonsense.
uh,
This military government oversees everything.
um, well, and then speaking of Donald Trump, I guess over the last few days he had a meeting with Vladimir Putin, the leader of Russia, and Volodymyr Zelensky. Oh, I'm sorry. Was it today?
Today.
Okay, sorry.
It's in Elmendorf Air Force Base in Anchorage.
Okay. So, okay, we know what they officially said. What do you think they unofficially said?
What I think they unofficially said is Brother Freemasons working for the Pope. Well,
Correct.
What I would say is, well, Vlad, you've been going on with this war with Ukraine now for the last, how many years? 2, 3 years?
You're talking about February of 2022, so you're talking 2.5,
2.5, 3 years?
close to 4 years?
Yeah. Now, what does your Jesuit provincial have to say, Vladimir? Have you guys killed enough white Russian Orthodox men? Or do we need to continue this war to kill a few more 100,000? Because that's all it's about. It's about the Council of Trent and the killing of heretics and liberals. So probably Putin would say, well, Trump, Donald, haven't you think enough of these Ukrainian white Orthodox men have been killed? You think we have killed enough, or do we need to continue this war another 6 months or a year? So that's what they're deciding, because it's overseen by Jesuits. There are Jesuits in this meeting, no doubt. Jesuit coadjutors or some agent for them here, whether it's just CIA or whatever, but there's some agent for the Jesuits overseeing what's happening to make sure what's done is what they want done. And so, Vladimir, I know you're a racial Jew, Vladimir, and you give us a lot of anti-Jewish fury among the Ukrainians because it's a Jew that's done this to them. So, you've done your job pretty good, and I think we can build a lot of anti-Jewish fury on what you've done, Mr. Zelensky. So,
okay, sorry.
That's what they're talking about. They're not talking about really ending the war.
Okay, so I'm a bit perplexed because I thought Vladimir Putin was Russian Orthodox.
Yeah. Just because he's Russian Orthodox doesn't mean he's not involved in the killing of his own people.
Okay, so Volodymyr Zelensky is Jewish, but his wife is Ukrainian Eastern Orthodox.
Okay, so he's contributing to the murder, the destruction of the Ukrainian Eastern Orthodox.
Okay. And something we had been discussing before, all of whom are high-level Freemasons.
Just like that filthy Joseph Stalin. He was a high-level Freemason. He was Orthodox. He went to an Orthodox seminary. He went to Tiflis. And but yet he's involved in the killing of millions of his own Russian Orthodox men.
Tens of millions.
Tens of millions. Why? Because he's working for the Jesuits there in Moscow. And those Jesuits were an Assumptionist church in Moscow, a French church. I have it in a particular book of mine. And so he just did it. And he had the right-hand man, the man Friday that Svetlana calls in her book, Stalin, or Svetlana. She says that this guy, wasn't not Jabotinsky, but what's his name? Anyway, he said this man was Stalin's man Friday, and he wrote all the death lists. So Alexander Paskrevishev, he wrote all the death lists. And Stalin signed them. Stalin was stupid. He was a dog, and he was doing exactly what he was told to do. Mm-hmm. So they're killing his own Russian Orthodox men. You got to kill the manhood of any nation before you conquer it. And so that's what they do. So we'll have a war. We'll call it a war for patriotism or whatever, some nonsense like that. But we really want to kill the manhood. And that's what they're going to do here again.
Okay, so here, do you mean in North America?
Yes. Millions of American young men are going to go to a two-front war here, and they're never coming back.
Well, something I've not mentioned before, and I don't think I've emailed you this, but something they've talked about doing, the Trump administration, is re-implementing the national fitness test for
Yeah.
students.
Yeah, they've already started that. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I've heard this from various sources, mainstream sources, that as of right now, or at least 2024, probably more than three-fourths of the people who are applying to get into any branch of the military could not pass the basic physical.
Yeah.
They couldn't run the mile or mile and a half in the prescribed time. They couldn't do the number of push-ups. We're talking about men. So the figure is something like 77%. And we're just simply talking about the physical aspects. That's not talking about criminal or psychological or whatever. So they probably disqualify more than 90% of the people who are applying to get in. And however, I guess that would need to change. So
right.
They're going to bring back calisthenics
Yep.
to high school, for example.
That's right.
They're going to require you to do jumping jacks and do the rope climb and all that sort of stuff.
Yep. I had two presidential fitness patches that I got in 7th grade and 8th grade. We thought we were pretty cool. And in 12th grade, 11th, 12th grade, you get gold trunks if you're really good. And there's only about 5 guys in the whole school that got gold trunks. So, I mean, it's okay. You're busy trying to get in shape. I think that's a good thing. But we need something now because all these young men are just unfit for basic training, unfit for fighting. At least the vast majority of white men.
Mm-hmm.
The blacks are busy fighting all the time, so they're ready. And they'll send them off to some foreign land to get killed and never come back. I was watching a special on Vietnam last night. He said the majority of the whites in the ground pounders were Southerners, Southern whites from Texas, and blacks. I thought that intrigued. That was Dan Rather who said that. I watched a special on him last night.
Mm-hmm.
A traitor. Anyway, go ahead, George.
Oh, okay. So anyhow, they need to get the young people back into shape. They need to have them doing calisthenics and push-ups and jumping jacks and all those other behavior if they're going to fight in this upcoming crusade or
right.
crusades.
That's right. We got some crusades coming up. We got to get in shape. Got to make the Pope happy if we're going to fight his crusades now.
Well, can I just mention something of a purely local nature? I read this in my local paper on Monday. The Santa Rosa Press Democrat in California. I guess the night before, so Sunday, August the 10th, there was a shooting in Santa Rosa that I guess, and I realize your audience may not be too interested in hearing about this because this is a purely local news item. So just bear with me for a moment, if you will. Okay, so an off-duty Sonoma County Sheriff's deputy had an altercation with his girlfriend, his live-in girlfriend. He was 44 and she was 38. The suspect, or well, I guess the alleged killer, Jeremy Lyle, had been with the sheriff's department for 10 years. He previously had been in the Coast Guard. I don't know what he did. And there are a number of oddities about the stories, and I'll just share a couple. As I said, he was 44 years old, and he had been with the sheriff's department since 2015. She, the girl, was it Mari Donizetti? I believe she was of Italian descent.
Sounds like an Italian Catholic to me. Mm-hmm.
Probably. She was a civilian employee for the county. She worked in the administration section of the paper work and I guess finances. So they had three children together, all of whom were under the age of two, an 8 year
Really?
old and a 16-month-old twins. And you said really?
Yeah. They had three children under the age of two?
Correct.
Did she have twins
So
or something?
yes.
Okay.
Okay. So I don't know if this Lyle had been married before. It didn't say that in the article, but I imagine he probably was. And I'm not making excuses for him. So odds are, I have a gut feeling he probably had an acrimonious divorce. Now, I'm not making, I'm not rationalized. So he probably said, you know what? I don't want to do this again. Yeah, I don't mind being with a girl, but she took me to the cleaners the last time I went down the aisle. So I'll just live with her.
I know
I,
two other men like that.
I'm sorry.
I know two other men like that.
Okay, so okay, I'm as I said, that's speculation on my part. Now, something else, a couple other details that I need to share. One, he was renting an apartment. And even if he did go through a really messy divorce, he should have been able to buy a condo or something. You're in this profession, you're in your 40s, most people are going to be buying. Okay, maybe he just didn't want the responsibility of having a mortgage. Who knows? Also, according to the paper, with overtime, he made $365,000 last year. I'll repeat that. He made $365,000 last year. So that's $1,000 a day for a deputy, not a sergeant, not a captain, but just a patrol deputy.
Yeah.
So why? Okay, this may. All right. So I don't. Okay. So why do I bring this up? Well, almost as we've discussed before, almost every law enforcement agency in the world has a leadership structure. It has command staff. They may have the chief of police or the sheriff, but they have other people who are actually who are subordinates,
Yep. That's right.
such as and I'm pulling this up right now.
Henry Killinger. He was subordinate.
To whom?
He was subordinate to the commander in chief. Commander in chief subordinate to the Pope.
Okay, yes. All right. So I'm getting to the punchline. Okay, so the sheriff of Sonoma County, his name is Eddie Ingram. He's a black man, and he's married to a white woman. I know that's
Oh,
immaterial.
good. He's arrived now, working in a white town with a job with a white woman. He's in savage black heaven. He's accomplished everything that he wants to do. Don't want to have a pretty black wife, and there are thousands of them out there. But we got to have a white woman. Go ahead.
Okay, so I mentioned the sheriff, the assistant sheriff of Sonoma County. His name is Jason Fowler, and he. This is according to the county's webpage. He went to Cardinal Newman High School in Santa Rosa, California.
Is that John Cardinal Newman, the traitor to the Anglican Church?
The one and the same.
Yeah. Dirty, filthy swine. Also behind the revision of the King James Bible in the 1870s, into the 80s. He was invited to sit on the New Testament Revision Committee, but he decided that he shouldn't because Pius IX made him a cardinal. Go ahead.
Well, good for him for services rendered. So now, as I said, that Jason Fowler is the assistant sheriff of Sonoma County. So, in actuality, he's probably the one who's in charge, and Ingram is just simply the front man. That's just
Probably.
my okay.
Yeah. Uh-huh. Go ahead, Georgia.
Well, and of course, the head of the SWAT, the Special Weapons and Assault Team, his name is Lance Badger. He also went to Cardinal Newman High School in the same town, Santa Rosa, California. So you have two people in leadership who went to Catholic institutions. The number two man in the department and the one who's in charge of basically uh, the special, you know, the special forces for the department. And
Okay,
as a matter of fact, it was SWAT that responded to the shooting over the weekend.
I see. Of
Now,
course, now remember, George, that I don't really care what goes on in California.
yes,
If they have shooters out there, the California authorities need to take care of that.
correct.
Pennsylvania, we should be able to take care of our own issues, and it shouldn't be anybody else's duty. Because on a state level, all violent crimes on a state level to be prosecuted on a state level. So it really doesn't concern me. You got 350 million people here. There's going to be murders every day, and just concerned about the state that I live in or the county or both.
Okay, yes, I can understand why you have that attitude. And I, for a long time, had it as well. However, we don't live on an island. In this, what happens in California or what happens in New York or what happens in Florida has an effect on other states. Other governors and other legislatures will say, "Hey, that mass shooting that they just had in L.A. or Miami, or we don't want that to happen here. So we should pass laws to make it harder for citizens to defend themselves." So that is why people need to be concerned about what happens in other states or even other countries for that matter. And
Right.
it's just uh, uh, go ahead.
That's right. I mean, we need to be studying what's happening, but we have too much attention on all the national news and who's killing who and who won the roller skate competition in Minnesota. I don't care. I care about what happens in my country of Pennsylvania and my little county here of Lebanon. Unless it's a national issue worthy of attention of everybody in the country, it should not even be reported. And we have this infotainment of the news like Fox News and CNN, and they want to sell their personalities. I don't care what they believe. I mean, I don't care what their private life is. I just want you to give me the news. Can you do that for me, please? I don't need to be entertained. I'm not a child. Just give me the facts, and I will make my conclusions. But they don't want to do that. So they're going to continue to hide the facts from you and have a popularity contest going on between Laura Ingraham and Sean Hannity. Go ahead.
Okay, so I just had to say, and we're assuming this event actually happened, and two, I'm making a second assumption that one, it happened as described.
Yeah.
Perhaps the sheriff deputy wasn't following orders. Perhaps he broke the code of silence or something,
Yeah.
or maybe he said, I want to get out. And who knows? Maybe they can use this as a pretext, to implement, RoboCop or
Yeah.
drone police.
RoboCop. Yeah. Mm-hmm. They already have their robot cops and their robot dogs, and they're using these robot dogs in the military. And the Russians are scared to death of them because
Ah,
they run right up to you and blow you up or shoot you, whatever. So
ah.
they're perfecting all sorts of wonderful new technology to kill people in a most extravagant way with the least amount of threat to their soldiers.
Well, and okay, we're talking about Sonoma County, which is where I happen to live at the moment, and we're talking specifically about the sheriff's department. And I've known people over the years who worked for them. And I knew somebody who worked for them for less than a year because he was hired as a sheriff's deputy well, obviously, in their jail. And I didn't know this until Jeff told me this. He said part of the weeding out process is the horrible hours they have you work. You work or back when he was there, and I don't know if they've changed it since then. You work 16 hours 3 days a week, 1 week, then the 16 hours for 4 days the next week. So you do three 16-hour shifts, then four 16-hour shifts. And
Probably call
then,
it graveyard.
well,
They don't
yeah,
even work the
well,
graveyard.
Well, yes. So he says specifically they have him starting out at midnight and you work until 4 p.m.
That's great.
Then the following month, well, yes, but then the following month they'd have him coming in at noon and work until 4 the next morning. And you had to be in uniform and ready to go when your shift started. And you had to have your boots polished. So you basically had less than 8 hours turnaround time from the time your shift was over to get back there. And Jeff didn't make probation, and he was married at the time, but he wasn't by the time he left the sheriff's department. So
Mhm.
what that does is it throws your sleep cycle off. It messes up your circadian rhythm or circadian rhythms.
Mhm.
And that is actually, I kid you not, that is actually a torture technique, and it's a form of mind control.
That's right.
So you are familiar with Hell Week for the SEALs.
Mhm. Yep.
So
Mhm.
one of the techniques they use is the SEALs, they had to do all these endurance activities. So, but one of the things for 7 days straight, they only get 1 hour of sleep a night. And so after a while, you're going to start hallucinating. You're going to see things and hear things that aren't there.
Yep.
And that is a form, as I said, mind control. Also, I know of doctors when they're doing their residencies. So to be a medical doctor, you have to go 4 years for your undergrad, 4 years for medical school, then 3 years on top of that for your residency. Then you can become a full-on medical doctor. So they'll typically work a 36-hour shift, usually 3 times a week. So you're basically either working or sleeping.
Mhm.
So do you know how incredibly insane that is?
Well, it is practically speaking, but if you're out to destroy the population through a medical inquisition, you have to make the medical doctors, sick and not as good as they could be, and it makes perfect sense then.
Okay, so but why do that to sheriff's deputies who are working the county jail?
No, it's fair game. They don't want the sheriffs on the county level to be up and aware of what's happening. Yeah. They know the sheriff is the most powerful man in the county,
Mhm.
powerful political peace officer in the county. So we got to further destroy this infrastructure of white Anglo-Saxon Protestant Western civilization. So it's just like Malcolm X said, by any means necessary.
Ah, well, okay. The Jesuits have probably known this for centuries. That there are several forms of torture and mind control. As I said, sleep deprivation or throwing your sleep cycles off. You know, I think you and Dr. Jeff Solinger talked about this years ago.
Yeah.
Most people, when the sun goes down, they get sleepy and they want to go to bed 10, 11 at the latest, depending upon the person.
That's
But
me. Hmm. I turn
well,
off between 10 and 10:30. I'm absolutely off at 10:30.
oh, okay. So even when you're a little bit younger, was that the case?
Yeah, it was. I was a party pooper. I had to get to bed. I didn't like
Ah,
staying up late. Yeah.
well, you know, something. Okay, if I could just mention something of purely trivial nature, somebody told me this at my gym. This was like 15 years ago, and she was saying that, oh yes, did you know that actuarials, people who do charts for insurance companies, look at the type of job you have and they make prognostications, predictions as to how long you're going to live by the shift you work. If you work a traditional day shift, you're probably going to have a longer life.
Sure.
If you work an irregular shift, third shift, graveyard, not so much.
That's right.
And
Being deprived of light. And in being deprived of life, you're being deprived of one of the very great necessities of your health.
that is sleep.
Sleep and also being in light during the day.
Mm-hmm. Oh, okay. So I guess there's more than one reason why they call the third shift the graveyard shift.
Yeah.
So, I don't mean to sound like one of those crazy conspiracy theories there is, but there seems to be a war on sleep.
Well, yeah,
Hmm.
sure.
Or is it just my imagination?
I don't think so, George. I think it's absolutely a war on sleep. That's why you got TV and things on all night long. I remember when I was growing up, the TV turned off about 10 or 11 o'clock.
Mhm.
All the channels went off. Not now. We can watch TV and movies all night long. If not that, video games, so that further screws up your Arcadian circuitry.
Okay, and I think I missed. I said circadian. Or is that? Is it,
Circadian.
but it,
Circadian.
oh, okay. Well, circadian. Oh, okay. Well, thank you. So yes, one of these days I'll have to learn how to speak English. So, anyhow, so as I said, there seems to be a war on sleep, and that seems silly, but there seems to be a war on almost everything. There is a war on water. There is a war on air. A war on food. There's a war on money.
War on poverty.
There's
Forget the war on poverty. Don't forget the war on cancer. Come on now, George. We're winning
and
the
drugs.
war. Yeah.
Okay, well, and I'm not being sarcastic or hyperbolic when I say this, and I say yes, there seems to be a conflict against sleep. We have all these devices, the internet, our phones. They're going 24/7, and we have these machines and technology that are keeping us awake. Oh, I got up at 2 o'clock in the morning to go to the bathroom. Oh, I might as well check my email. And it's just like this has been going on for a long time, but it seems to have got worse
Mhm.
in the 21st century, particularly since 2010. Or
Mhm.
is that just my imagination?
No, I think you're right, George.
Okay, so could there be an actual conspiracy behind this?
Well, if you watch Jack Cruz, he's a neurosurgeon or was a neurosurgeon. He has some videos up on the web if people want to check him out, but he's a very brilliant man, and he talks about the big companies, big computer companies that deliberately have put blue light into your screen because they know what that does to you. And he goes into the whole history of how that happened. So that's right. There is a conspiracy against your sleep, against your circadian rhythm when you're before this blue light all the time. So we need to lower our blue light and then use blue light goggles when we're on the computer.
Um, so if you can't sleep, if you're not rested, you're going to be tired. You're going to have a hard time functioning, doing your basic job, whatever that is. But that's also going to make it harder for you to do any sort of research, to look things up, to read a
Right.
book, to read the Bible, to
Right.
pray. Hmm.
That's right. Very
Well,
brilliant.
so by the way, I think this would have. How could I? Okay, there's something else I need to mention. I guess on the 8th of this month, William Hedgecock Webster died at the age of 101. He was born on the 6th of March, 1924, and I said he died on August the 25th. I'm sorry, August the 8th, the 20th, 2025. So he was just 101 years old. So,
101 when he died.
yes.
These wicked sinners lived long, wicked lives. I used to walk through the Jesuit cemeteries, and I was amazed at how many of them were 80, 90, 95. It's just, they live long, wicked lives. Yep. Go ahead.
Okay, so Webster was basically the director of the CIA, Catholics in Action, from 1987 to 91. He took over after another William Casey. And prior to that, from 1978 to 87, he was the director. I'm sorry, I got that reversed. He was the head of the FBI from 78 to 87, then the head of the CIA from 87 to 91. Now, what is so? How did the whore harbor hooks into him? Well, among other things, he received both the the OSS, the Office of Strategic Service Prize, and the William J. Donovan Prize.
Wonderful. Leo J. O'Donovan, is that what you said?
Correct.
You mean Wild Bill Donovan, William Donovan.
Oh, I beg your pardon. Yes, William Joseph Donovan. Yes, Wild Bill.
All right, that's a demerit for you, George. I'm gonna have you sit in the corner with a dust cap on. Put that
Oh, oh,
bubble gum on the end of your nose. That's how we were
okay.
punished in school. Had to put the bubble gum on the end of our nose and sit in the corner.
Ah, so he, I guess, was a member of. Where did he get his degree? He got his undergrad degree from Amherst, and he got his law degree from Washington University. I think that's in Washington State. So while he was at Amherst, which I believe is in Massachusetts, he was a member of, was it Psi Epsilon? So he was a Freemason, among other things, probably Scottish Rite.
Mhm.
And he was the Order of Quaff. So he is a member of all these nefarious Kabbalistic organizations.
Mhm. No, the order
So
of
just
Quaff is a order for lawyers.
correct.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, do you have anything else you'd like to share about Mr. Webster?
No, he was just a no good, dirty sinner and a traitor, busy serving the interests of the papacy and couldn't care less about us. I think that's all that needs to be said about him.
Okay, so could you elaborate when you said he was a traitor? Could you elaborate on that?
Sure, because he was heading the CIA. Anybody that's heading the CIA is a traitor. You're working for the Pope, not for us.
Ah, well, and of course, made it past the century mark, and so Henry Kissinger was also over 100 when he died.
Yep. Took a lot of special medicine to extend his life. Yeah. So these wicked sinners extend their lives into their 90s, maybe into the hundreds, and they have plenty of what's that chrome? What's that?
Adrenochrome?
So that's right, chrome. So that keep them young. Just they better keep taking it, or they'll look terrible. Anything.
Ah,
I remember one time I was talking with Joel Bannerman. Joel Bannerman was a very brilliant Jewish man. He wrote a great book on exposing George Herbert Walker Bush titled The Crimes of a President. And they tried to kill him over that. The deputy director of the CIA was an Italian Roman Catholic, Victor Marchetti, gave him a poison tie. And Joel put it on the tie and he came down with throat cancer. So he recovered, but when you go after these people like that, especially if you're some sort of literary writer, they're serious about putting an end to that. So, and if there's all good press on William Webster, then you know he was a good boy and did exactly what he was supposed to do, just like Dan Rather. They were good boys, did what they were supposed to do, and were traitors to the American people. The American people are too dumbed down to understand that all these guys are traitors. Go ahead.
well, yes. Well, you mentioned Dan Rather. He's something like 90 years old.
Yeah,
And so, among other things, he's CFR, Council of Foreign Relations.
that's right. Which means he's beholden to the Archbishop of New York City.
Mhm.
Just remember that, sinner. The reason why he became anchorman for CBS is because he lied about the Kennedy assassination. When he saw President Kennedy's lurch forward with a shot from the book depository, his head never lurched forward. So for that lie, they made him anchor for CBS for what, 20 some years.
Well, he replaced the other luminary, Walter
Walter
Cronkite.
Concrete. Yeah. Or excuse me, Walter Cronkite.
Hmm. And that's the way it is.
That's the way it is. Or telling you the way it is, stupid. After he was
Ah,
a traitor at Nuremberg and participated in the release of the keeping back of certain information. As Cronkite was working with Father Walsh, Edmund A. Walsh, at the Nuremberg trials. Go ahead.
well, I'm, we probably can go on all day about this. But so in 81, Dan Rather replaced Walter Cronkite, and both of whom worked for CBS. And well, actually, I'm conflating what I'm about to say. And of course, you know the symbol for CBS?
That's the all-seeing eye.
Hmm.
Yeah,
There's nothing untoward going on there, is there? There's
but
nothing
of course,
Masonic.
with the Catholic broadcasting system, which is the communist broadcasting system, because Roman Catholicism and communism are twin sisters. Go ahead.
Okay, so yes, you have the all-seeing eye for CBS. Well, I have a confession to make.
George,
Yes.
our Father, Hail Mary, full of grace. You better say a few things like that if you're going to have to confess your sins now, George.
Okay. So I never worked for CBS, but close enough.
Mhm.
One of the numerous jobs I had over the years is I worked for Pinkerton Security Services. And
Pinkerton, that's a treasonous operation.
well, tell me, well, I didn't know this at the time because I just needed a job. And their logo is almost or was almost the same as CBS. It had the all-seeing eye. And Pinkerton was the first private security company in America and one of the first ones in the world. And it's
Yeah, they,
founded
they
by none,
sacrificed. They sacrificed Lincoln.
among other things.
Yeah, they were in on the assassination. That's why. That's why the guy Wilkes Booth went in to shoot Lincoln. The Pinkerton guard was gone. He had
Mhm.
left his post. What a coincidence, George. More coincidences. Go ahead.
Okay, so I briefly worked for Pinkerton Services, 30 plus years ago, and their logo was basically the same as CBS, the all-seeing eye. And I didn't know this at the time. And I heard of Freemasonry. I knew a little bit about it, but as I said, hey, I just need something that pays the bills. And this is something I've not looked into. But if you investigate the history of private security services, almost all of them, the founders have like had a military background, such as William Burns, a Burns Security, Vatican, people like that, and they often would get these contracts.
Yeah, well, Wagner
And
has the prison contracts. They're enjoying the monopoly in the American prison system.
okay, so anyhow, so that was my shaggy dog story of the day, and so you basically had to ask yourself, if you're a person you need a job, you could work for your family, you could work construction, you could become a mechanic or drive a truck until they completely ban combustion engines. So, or you could work for one of these corporations like Pinkerton doesn't exist. It was bought by a Swedish company back in the 1990s called Securitas.
Okay.
And so this is more of a philosophical question. So if you're talking to a young person who says, "Hey, you know what? I need a job, but am I sinning by working for one of these evil corporations, such as Bechtel or Raytheon or anything like that?"
No, I don't think so, because if you applied that principle, you'd have to go out of the earth. Am I sinning because I'm buying a new car? The Ford's run by Rome and General Motors and Chrysler. So I'm enriching them, so you'd have to go out of the earth. So no, you're not. But if you're participating in an active conspiracy of those corporations, then yes, you are.
Okay, but then I used to have no qualms recommending people go into the military. Oh yes, it's a good way to get money for college and get the VA loan. There's no way in Hades I would recommend anybody do that
Well, I agree.
because you're basically being a crusader for the Pope, or basically
Right.
you're.
That's right. That's why I told my sons you're not going in. You're just going to fight for the Pope. You're not fighting for America. You're not fighting for defense of America. These guys say to me, "Oh, thank you for your service." I said, "Please don't do that." I said, "I was just busy fighting for the Pope. I was stationed in Germany for 3.5 years fighting for the Pope. There's nothing for America there. I didn't do anything for my American people." Go ahead.
Ah, so anyhow, I know when I come, when we do these presentations, and I know we've been doing this for over 6 years, since July of 2019. Yeah, sometimes I can be a little bit disorganized and okay, guilty as charged. So I just like to change gears somewhat. Do you remember a TV show that was popular in the 1980s called Hill Street Blues?
No,
You don't.
I don't.
Oh, uh, I watched it when it was on, so I'm dating myself. I'm 56, and I like the drama and the camaraderie, and it was just another form of mind control and bread and circuses and all that sort of stuff. And well, maybe I should give some receipts. It was an NBC program, National Broadcast Corporation, which ran from the 15th of January 1981 until May the 12th, 1987, so 6 years. And they never said where it took place. It probably was somewhere in the Northeast, but they never actually said. And okay, so the main star of the program was Daniel J. Travanti, who was born Daniello Giovanni Travanti, who was born on the 7th of March, 1940. So what does that sound like to you?
Sounds like an Italian Roman Catholic.
Oh, okay. And for good measure, he got his undergrad degree from Loyola Marymount in
Oh,
Los
goody. So
Angeles.
he went to the Holy Fathers, the Jesuit order, and they granted him their education that they will give to him, so he can serve them better when he is out of their school.
Okay, so his character's name was Captain Francis Xavier Frank Farillo.
Francis Xavier? Really?
Right.
One of the most powerful Jesuits to ever live, right-hand man to Ignatius Loyola. Francis Xavier goes into the Far East. I think he went into Japan.
Correct.
Yep. With Matu Ricci, who went into China. Yeah. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, so one of the other, I won't go through all the actors in the show, but I'll just mention a couple. Um, One of the supporting actors was Michael Conrad, who lived from the 16th of October, 1925 until November the 22nd, JFK Day, 1983. So he was only 58 at the time of his death. He died of pancreatic cancer.
Hmm.
And however, I don't know what his religious background was. However, his character's name was Sergeant Phil Esterhaus. His full name was Philip Freemason Esterhaus.
Let's see.
Now, this was a fictitious. That seems like an odd name for a character.
Yeah, sure does.
So you had um, the captain Frank Farillo, whose birth name was Francis Xavier Farillo, and the actor who played him, Dan Travanti, went to Loyola Marymount, Los Angeles. Gee, what do you think they're telling us with these actors and these characters' names?
Well, they're all working for the Pope. Like the Ku Klux Klan said, the Jews, the Catholics, and the blacks are going to be taking over this country. And so you can't hear that kind of thing. So the white power structure using the Jews, the Catholics, and the blacks individuals to appear like they're in control when it's really the Jesuits and their white power structure that's in control.
Okay, so do you mind if I back you up on that, so to speak? So the producer of the show was Stephen Bochco, Boccho. Now that sounds Italian. However, now his dates were the 16th of December, 1943, April the 1st, no joke, 2018. So he was all of 84 when he died. He was Jewish.
Mhm.
So, so you have this Jew who produces the show, and you have almost all the characters on the program are, well, Catholic or black.
Yeah. Mhm. Yeah, that's typical. That's Jesuit Hollywood. Mhm. We have Catholic
Okay.
supremacy, we have black supremacy. And all these prostitute Protestants can take a back seat.
Okay. So now regarding Basho, okay, not to sound mean, but they needed somebody like Basho, this Jew, because they need somebody who knows what he's doing to run things.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh, Um, I think I mentioned this to you a while back, But there's a famous mobster named Jimmy the Weasel, whose name was James Fracciano or something like that. And I guess during the 1980s, he was being interviewed by the BBC. And he said, "Oh, what is your?" Uh, I think I've said this to you before, so forgive me for repeating myself. And he said, "So I understand you're Catholic, yes, and you go to mass on a regular basis, yes, daily." And he said, "Well, given the life you've led for decades, does that bother your conscience?" "Not really, because I know I'll be forgiven by if I just confess my sins to the priest."
Right. So I can continue to commit criminal acts and just go and confess them to the priest, and I'm good to go.
Okay, then I guess a part of the interview, he said, "Oh, so I understand. So what is your views towards Jews?" He said, "We need them. We need people who can actually do our payroll for us."
Yeah, that's right. Well, that's why the papacy always uses Jews for financiers. That's why the mafia used the Jew to finance it and oversee its economic matters, like Meyer Lansky. They always use the Jews in places of financial concern because they're the smartest and they're the best at it. So they're going to use them for the building of the papacy.
Okay, so how does that help facilitate the new right?
Well, the new right, I'm sure, has certain Jews involved in it and facilitating its building also.
Okay, if I could mention something that appears to be off topic, but perhaps not. So I understand, I just found this out recently, that between roughly 1890 and say 1920, so end of the 19th and beginning of early 20th century, they're into Prussia and the newly formed modern nation of Germany. They had a huge influx of Jews going there from Eastern Europe, from Russia, Ukraine, Lithuania, places like that.
Yep.
And when I say influx, you're talking tens of thousands of them. But
Well,
you already had a fairly
remember,
large.
just remember, George, that Prussia was responsible, Lutheran Prussia was responsible for the enabling the Jews, the enfranchisement of the Jews so they could get the vote. Enfranchised 550,000 Jews. And that worked out for the betterment of the Second Reich from 1871 to 1917. So,
Okay, so I just found this out recently. So you have this huge after 1890 or so, you have this huge influx of Jews from Eastern Europe moving into Germany, and the Germans who have been there have been basically assimilated into German society.
yeah,
Their
right.
marriage, and they're basically ensconced in almost every facet of German society: academia, the legal field, composers, scientists,
Yeah,
publishers, writers, intellectuals, the white collar people, your accountants,
that's right.
and they basically. So they, for all intents and purposes, these German Jews who have been there before 1890 were Germans. They consider themselves
Yes,
Germans first
that's right.
and Jews second.
They fought valiantly in World War One.
Yes.
Many German Jews, yes, that's right.
Okay, so later on, they also became figures in the nascent German film industry and recording industry, I don't know, radio and publishing. Well, I mentioned publishing already. However, what happened after 1920? Well, yes, I know you have the Treaty of Versailles, but what happened after 1920 and definitely after 1930 that basically caused most Germans, uh, Gentile Germans, to turn on the Jews?
Because of the immorality of the network of the movies that the Jews, for the most part, controlled, which is what the Jesuits want. So they could turn and blame the Jews for the immorality of the Weimar Republic. That's one of the things.
Okay, so as we discussed before, they call the 1920s the Roaring Twenties and the Jazz Age, and
Jazz is all
because
black.
well, that's
Jazz is black. White people
yes.
should not listen to jazz. Jazz is for the blacks. They created it themselves. White people should not listen to the blues. That's what the blacks created with their 3-chord songs, only 3 chords. So that's not our music. Whenever you listen to that, it degenerates you. Go ahead.
Okay, so you probably know this, but jazz was probably just as popular in Europe as it was in the United States, particularly in places like Paris and Berlin.
Yeah, well, there's
And
a large
Berlin,
black population in Paris and also Berlin. So they
mhm,
were Africanizing the whites of France and Germany, demoralizing them with jazz and pro-black policies.
mhm. And they later do the same thing with rock and roll music in the
Same,
1950s and beyond.
that's right.
And well, I know that on one of your recent broadcasts, I mean, probably in the last few months, was I believe it was Stephen Drake. He mentioned a couple quotes by James Cardinal Quigley, the Catholic Archbishop of Chicago back in the early 20th century. Do you remember those?
I think it's the one that says when the American rules the world, the Catholic Church will rule the world.
Yes, he said that in 1903. He said
And
in
I
20
got that.
years.
I got that from um, Romanism: A Menace to the Nation by Jeremiah Crowley, who was a priest
Okay,
saved, and he quoted that in there, and I put it in my book. Go ahead.
okay. So just for those who may have missed it, Crowley said, or Quigley said, quote, in 20 years, he said this in 1903, America will rule the world and the Catholic Church will rule the world,
That's right.
close quote.
That's what he
So
said.
he also said, if any, so his deadline ended more than a century ago. So I imagine he was talking largely culturally through Hollywood, through music, through the entertainment industry.
No, no, he was talking militarily. When the United States rules the world militarily, then the Vatican, then the Catholic Church will rule the world militarily. It's all
Well,
about temporal power. That's all they care about.
okay, but doesn't would it be safe to say that the concept applies to culture as well?
The concept of what, sir?
Entertainment, films, music. Doesn't wouldn't you say that applies culturally as well?
Oh, I would say sure, but just because the papacy would rule the United States didn't rule the world culturally. Not 20 years from 1903. They would rule the world militarily, but not culturally.
Well, okay, I don't mean to sound contrarian. Well, I mean, if you think about it, jazz became goes back to late 19th century in places. Now, it's been a debate as to where it actually started. Some argue Chicago, some New Orleans. And does it really matter? The Jesuits owned both towns.
That's
But
right.
it did not become a national phenomenon until roughly after World War One. So you're talking like right about 1920 thereabouts. But almost immediately they exported it to Europe,
They
as
did.
I said, to places like
Did.
France and Germany.
I have a picture of a black woman in Berlin, pretty black woman performing jazz for all the white Berliners, further
Mhm.
demoralizing them.
Okay, so but if you think about it, almost all the culture emanates from the United States in the world. Yes, there are other places that have.
Today maybe, but not then. Yeah, yeah.
Well, I mean, you had Hollywood was rolling out pictures, in the end of the 19th century, but definitely by the 19 teens, they basically dominated the film market by
I'm
World
not.
War
I'm,
One.
I'm not going to argue that with you, George. I mean, the Jesuits were building Hollywood to dominate the world with all their movies and all their more immorality and so on. All I'm saying is when the Archbishop said that in 1903, he meant politically and militarily. That's what he meant.
Okay, so maybe I just misunderstood what you. Okay, and as I said, if you can conquer people psychologically, that's just as important as anything you can do with bullets or bombs.
Well, it's a prelude to it. final analysis, guns are going to be used to control or conquer countries, not just mere academia. That's what they've used the 14th Amendment American Empire to do for the last 90 years, George, conquer one country after another. That's why we have this huge military industrial complex, to conquer one nation after another for the benefit of the Pope.
Well, and of course, eventually, so do you think that the Vatican will basically abandon the United States and
Of course. Of
somebody
course.
else,
Vatican has sided with Red
Red
China.
China?
They've sided with China, they've sided with Russia, and they've sided with Islam. They're siding against America, the American people. If the Vatican sided with Islam, that's why they told Joey Baby to give $85 billion worth of military hardware to the Taliban. That just didn't happen. The Jesuits ordered Biden to do that because they're building the Muslim military enterprise to be used against us. Same way with Russia. They used American technology in the treason of DC to give the Russian military all this high technology. They're nothing without what's been given to them by this military government. Same way with China. So they've used the Pope's military government in DC to build communist Russia, communist China, destroy the German people during World War II, destroy the Jews out of Europe, the remainder to found the Latin kingdom of Jerusalem for the benefit of the Pope. I mean, all of this is orchestrated by this massive, brilliant military order of the Society of Jesus, and the heart of their New World Order is District of Columbia.
Okay. So, and well, you need the entertainment industry, sports, movies, music, whatever. One, to distract the masses, to get their focus off of what really matters. Also, to socially engineer them, to get them to accept concepts and ideas they otherwise would not.
Yeah,
You do that by pandering
to treat them like children. Oh, let's go up to the plate and swing our baseball bat and have someone pitch a ball to me and see if I can hit it. That's all childish stuff. That's for children. And they have professional baseball clubs, and the people can be like the Romans in their coliseums and cheer. It's a total waste of time. It's unfit for true citizens of a republic to be preoccupied with that trash. But that's what we have all the time.
And of course, you have the NFL, the National Football League. But most teams have cheerleaders.
Of course. And they will
and so
miscegenated, will glorify miscegenation. So white women with black men everywhere. Pardon me. And so that will further demoralize the culture.
So anyhow, well, I know it's a bit early, but do you mind if I just give out my contact information?
Yeah, go ahead, George. We're going to go ahead and close this out.
And well, there's some other things I need to attend to. So if people have any questions, comments, concerns, critiques, please email me at georgewidger1969@gmail.com. That's GEORWIDGER. If there's a topic you'd like me to cover or go over again, please email me. And please just tell me a little bit about yourself, where you're listening from, how long you've been listening, and God willing, we'll do this again next week.
Amen. Brother George, thank you for being with us this evening on 24/7 World Radio Podcast with Brother Eric John Phelps on this August 15th, 2025. You can send your gifts to RBT, P.O. Box 306, Newmanstown, Pennsylvania, 17073, or you can send it by PayPal. rbpbdonate@comcast.net, rbpbdonate@comcast.net, or you can send it to my Cash App account at cash tag Eric, E-R-I-C, John, Jon, Phelps, Phelps. So appreciate all your gifts and your sacrificial giving, and we'll continue to use it for these purposes of preaching the true gospel of Jesus Christ, that he died for our sins and buried and rose again, calls all men everywhere to repent and believe this wonderful gospel, that you might have everlasting life with the Lord in the New Jerusalem, as opposed to everlasting condemnation with the devil in the lake of fire. There's only two places people are going. And it's my prayer that those listening will all go to the New Jerusalem in heaven to be with Christ forever. So until we meet again, may the Lord bless you as you do his will according to his word, the AV 1611 Reformation Bible in its present edition of 1769. Until then, Maranatha.
Well, likewise, brother. Well, God bless, and I guess we'll talk soon.
Amen.